Interface Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Hello friends, and welcome to Fairfield Today. I'm your host, Paul Jasson. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast and telecast from the downtown lobby of Fairfield Federal, right here on the square, where this summer we always think about so many great things happening. We've got the bandstand going on behind us, the festival. I mean, just tons of stuff is just in the offing, just down the road a little bit. When as we tape today, it's a little cloudy and overcast, but we know spring is out there, 40-some days, so we're excited about that. So lots of things will be happening in Lancaster and Fairfield County. Going to begin the show today and talk about Fairfield Medical Center, one of the great places we're so fortunate to have here in Lancaster and Fairfield County, and we're going to have somebody that can talk about a particular segment of Fairfield Medical Center, and that's Tracy Kelly. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us. Tracy Kelly is the Executive Director of the Fairfield Medical Foundation, and that is something that perhaps we've all heard of and seen articles in the paper and heard things about, but maybe everybody doesn't know what the Fairfield Medical Foundation does and is, and this is the young lady that'll tell us about it. So the Fairfield Medical Foundation, what do you do?
So I love to talk about the Fairfield Medical Center Foundation because I feel like a lot of people in the community don't really know what we do.
Sure.
So we've been around for almost 15 years. Next year is our 15th anniversary, and we are the fundraising branch of Fairfield Medical Center.
Okay.
And so we build bridges between the community and the hospital, looking for philanthropic opportunities. We do special events, we do memorial bricks, we do naming opportunities, but all of that comes back to Fairfield Medical Center. And an interesting question I get sometimes in the community is, why would a hospital need to fundraise? Because when you look at a hospital from the outside, I mean, there are these large, beautiful buildings with all these beautiful windows, and you think, gosh, these institutions must have more than enough money. But when you think about it, Fairfield Medical Center is a nonprofit organization, and we exist to provide medical care for patients throughout the community, regardless of whether or not they can afford it, because we feel that that's important for the community, that everybody has that access. But when you have a lot of people coming into a business who can't necessarily afford the services, that's when you need the support of the community to make it all possible. And so that's why the hospital has a foundation.
Now, you say you raise money for philanthropic things that occur within the community.
Yes.
What kind of money are we talking about? I know about the only thing I know of groups that do things like that are the Twigs, who raise all the money to help the hospital out in another way. They actually help the hospital get things the hospital needs that for one reason or another they can't buy. But you do it with things outside the hospital base, and then you recognize needs out there. How much money do you generate?
So every year we generate about $1 million in revenues, which amazes people.
Well, I'm amazed.
But, I think what's really interesting about that is, there's plenty of need over and above that $1 million. So just a couple of years ago, we made our largest gift to the hospital, which was a gift of $1 million. And that was to support the purchase of a linear accelerator. And a linear accelerator is a piece of cancer treatment equipment. It's state-of-the-art. It's comparable to anything you would get in Columbus. And it reduces the risk to the tissues surrounding a tumor. So it's a focused beam of radiation that reduces damage, and it allows for faster treatment for those patients. But a $1 million contribution was only about 1/6 of that project cost when you include the materials and then you include the infrastructure around the machine. And so when you think about it from that perspective, $1 million is wonderful to make every year, but we still need community support.
I mean, if anybody's ever had an occasion to be in a hospital room or perhaps an operating room where they see what goes on, you know that equipment, you don't get that at Walmart.
No,
it's not inexpensive. So I would imagine that anything that of that line that the hospital purchases. It's a major purchase.
Yes, and you mentioned our twigs, and so there's something wonderful about them that I have to mention,
Okay.
because I think sometimes people don't realize the impact of our wonderful twigs. So since their inception, they have raised over $4.6 million for the hospital.
Wow. And they have several, right?
Yes, they have several groups, and they run their own charitable events and
Right.
opportunities in the community. So, for example, the Bargain Boutique, the gift shop in the
I was
hospital.
going to say the gift shop is one I always remembered goes to help a twig.
Absolutely. The bookstore down by Kroger by the hospital, that is also a twig initiative. And so they run these from wall to wall completely on a volunteer basis and donate those funds back to the hospital.
You know, great things. Again, we're fortunate to have a place like Fairfield Medical Center.
I agree.
In Lancaster and Fairfield County. Now, we talk about the kind of monies you generate, the kind of usages you use for it. How do you raise funds?
So I touched on this a little bit. So special events are one of our opportunities, and
Okay.
so people are familiar with the fact that we do like a golf outing in the summer,
Okay.
Wine tasting in the fall. We've actually got a spring event coming up called Brews and Basketball, which will be March 23rd at 5 p.m.
Nice.
That's going to be at Outerbelt Brewing. It'll be a lot of fun, and there's information about that on our website.
Okay.
But, not everybody comes to special events, and we realize that. And so we have other opportunities as well. We do naming opportunities in the hospital. So if somebody has a wonderful experience, maybe in maternity,
Sure.
for example, you can dedicate a room, and recognize.
okay.
You can recognize a caregiver that way. You can recognize a loved one that way. And so that's an opportunity as well. We do memorial bricks and commemorative bricks. We also do grant writing, and so we have wonderful grant partnerships in the community with, for example, Fairfield County Foundation and other organizations like that as well. So there's a lot of different revenue streams that make up that $1 million in revenues.
My guest is Tracy Kelly. Tracy is the executive director of the Fairfield Medical Center Foundation, and that's what we're talking about, how they came about, what they do, and where the money goes that they generate. I know you have involvement, and again, the foundation, or the Fairfield Medical Center Foundation, is involved in so many different areas, but I know cancer screenings are
Yes.
something that's close to you.
Yes, and to go back to the different revenue streams that make up our $1 million, we have a lot of individuals in the community that like to donate to a very specific cause.
Sure, and that's people like that. They want to see a beginning and an end and something accomplished.
Exactly, and cancer screenings is one of those programs where we get a lot of community support. And so we cover cancer screenings for patients with financial need. We cover breast cancer screenings, colon cancer screenings, and as of this year, I'm excited to say that we're starting with low-dose lung cancer screenings as well, because that's a need that we see quite a bit in the community. And unfortunately, if a patient is experiencing symptoms and they postpone those exams, they can have very bad outcomes. And so we want to make it as accessible as possible for people in the community to get screened.
You spoke about this earlier, if we could just circle back to that. Something that you talked about too is one of your goals in your foundation is to see that nobody in the community has to go without
Exactly.
help from Fairfield Medical Center because of money.
Yeah.
So you have an assist program.
We do. So we have a very special program. It's called Script Assist, and
Okay.
it's one of my favorite programs to talk about.
Is that reasonably new?
So it's actually been around longer than our foundation.
Really?
Yes. So I want to say about 17 years that we've had Script Assist. And it was started inside the hospital just to address patient need, but then the foundation has started to partner with it and kind of expand awareness and expand resources for Script Assist. So prescription drugs can be extremely expensive.
That's a hot topic these days.
It is, and it's something that I think a lot of people find relatable. I myself have glaucoma, and glaucoma comes with some pretty expensive medications. We see a lot of people in the community with arthritis, heart disease, COPD, a lot of very expensive illnesses
And
to
long
treat.
term. I mean, once you
Long-term,
get them, you
chronic.
likely aren't going to get out of this cycle.
Exactly. And if a patient can't afford their prescription medication, we see behaviors like medication sharing. So maybe two people who have diabetes, they will trade off on who takes the insulin because they can't afford enough for both parties. And that can be, the consequences of that can be heartbreaking. We see people in the emergency department, and we want to discourage that as much as we can
Sure.
by making sure that prescription drugs are affordable for the people who need them. So with this particular program, what makes it special is that we work with an expert coordinator. Her name is Debbie Zwicker, and she is an expert on prescription medications, pharmaceutical companies, insurance programs. And so we have patients come in who are struggling to afford their medication, and they can sit down with Debbie, and she can help them understand all of their options. And in most cases, people qualify for programs that they didn't even realize existed. She will help them apply for those programs, either online or on paper, and then the prescription cost is then negated for that patient.
Oh.
And it saves patients in our community literally millions of dollars
Really?
a year. People don't realize that, because if you think about a medication that costs you a couple $1,000s a month, and then you think about the fact that we're serving 2,500 patients in that program, you can get to millions of dollars very quickly. And so it's a wonderful program, but a lot of people don't even know it exists.
I'd never heard of it.
Exactly. And so we want to make sure that people in the community are aware of this option, because we suspect that, especially with the cost of inflation right now, that people are really struggling to make ends meet, and we don't want them to stop taking their medication because of that.
Well, what a great worthwhile thing to do, because we know medical costs are not declining.
No, they're not.
If anything, they're going up. Not all because of the hospital, but the cost of drugs is, as you've indicated, it's in some cases astronomical.
It is.
What I've seen people pay for a pill, or I mean, thousands of dollars for just one pill a month. I mean, I'm
Exactly.
sure you see this all the time.
Yes, we do.
It's frightening that. So Debbie Zwicker, I'm sure if you just call Fairfield Medical Center, you can ask for her. And
Yes, you
she's
can.
there. Does she help like lots of people every month? Is that a busy job?
Yeah, so there's actually over 2,000 people currently enrolled in the program.
Ooh.
Now, once she gets people enrolled, usually that will just kind of continue forward from that point. So she doesn't have to meet with them all every single month, but she will touch base with them periodically to make sure that they're currently enrolled in those programs, see if they're having any trouble and things like that. So she kind of navigates them through that process.
Yeah, one thing you talk about, and I just think about this, I use the Kroger pharmacy in the hospital. That's the one I choose to use. And as I walk in through the ER, that end right there, all the bricks right there, that's what you're talking about in terms of things you do.
Yes.
And you can still do that. That's not a finite process. It's not all done now, and we
It is
won't
not
know.
done. No, so if people want to remember a loved one or
Sure.
recognize an occasion, they can purchase a memorial brick as well. And they can reach out to us at the foundation, and we can walk them through that process.
And you can, and I've been on the website many times. Is it FairfieldFMC.org?
FMChealth.org.
FMChealth.org, okay. And there's a link to you on there and to the,
Yes.
I know there is to the foundation, but you can find that.
Yes, you can.
Sounds like you're involved in a lot of things
We
at the
are.
hospital. It sounds like one word, foundation, where you just do, but probably you touch, sounds like many areas in there.
We're very lucky.
So I guess just get hold of you if anybody hears this or sees this and is
Yes.
interested in something that you've talked about, whether it's Debbie or whether it's a brick or whether it's the promotional parties. Once again, what parties do you have coming up here to promote the
So
foundation?
We have Brews and Basketball, which is
Okay.
coming up on March 23rd. It'll be at 5 p.m. at Outerbelt Brewing.
Nice.
The tickets are only $35. It's a fun kind of come-as-you-are event. We'll have flights of beer and food, and the games will be playing. So that's a very fun, relaxed event for people who want to come out and support a great cause.
And all that info is available.
It is. It's on our website.
FMChealth.org.
Yep. Or people can just Google Fairfield Medical Center, and
Yeah.
we'll come right up.
It's easy to find.
It is.
Easy to find. Tracy Kelly has been with us. She is, again, the executive director of the Fairfield Medical Center Foundation. It sounds like a big umbrella organization that are involved in just almost every aspect of the hospital. So every day is, I guess, different and a challenge. And we'll
And
have
a
to
blessing.
we'll have to get Jack Genoso on here and talk about that, because he is such a great
He is.
spokesperson
He is.
for Fairfield Medical Center.
We're lucky to have him.
Yeah, he's a good guy, good guy. Tracy, thank you for joining. It's been
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
Thank you. We'll be back on Fairfield Today in just a moment.
Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
It's a hometown bank. It's located here in Fairfield County. Branches are convenient. They're located here in Pickerington, where my office is. I'm in Lancaster a lot, and they have plenty of branches there. And I much prefer dealing with the hometown banks rather than the larger nationwide chain banks.
So far, everybody's been so personable, and for us to bank with the local bank, and we bank in Lancaster, it's been so wonderful because we'll call somebody, Steve will call somebody, and they'll get back to us right away, or they'll say, okay, we're going to make a decision in the basement tomorrow, and they'll get back to us, rather than calling a bigger bank where we had to wait and we didn't always get the same person the next time we called for a investment banking opportunity, or getting something appraised, any of those kind of things.
Everybody is very customer friendly. A lot of times I'll bring my dog Bear with me, and the staff love him here, and of course he loves them and the treats that he gets. So it's just a nice kind of a family type environment.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You walked down the aisle and promised happily ever after. Sometimes happily ever after means ending a relationship. We know the conversations are not easy. Deciding what's best for you, your children, and your next steps takes work and communication. At Dagger Law, we know there are no monsters in a divorce, only people trying to find their way. Local, trusted, experienced. Dagger Law.
The staff that have been here know what it takes. They've been on the other side. They see what it takes to make someone comfortable, to make the family comfortable, and really what kind of support they need. And so I think that's what really makes Fairhope what it is.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
My name is Scott Duff, and I'm the director of the Fairfield County Overdose Response Team, and I'm here today to discuss Narcan. Narcan is the opioid overdose reversal medication. Narcan saves lives. We have saved countless lives in our community by providing Narcan to those with substance abuse disorders. We would very much like you to consider carrying Narcan on a regular basis. Narcan can be obtained easily in your community by reaching out to the Fairfield County Overdose Response Team at 740-901-1598.
This message is brought to you by the Fairfield County Adam H. Board.
How can I better manage my heart condition?
From cardiac emergencies to routine visits, our experts specialize in the latest treatments to keep you feeling your best. Whatever you're searching for, you can find it at Fairfield Medical Center.
Welcome back to Fairfield Today. Paul Jasson. I want to thank Tracy Kelly for coming in, tell us about a really good program out at Fairfield Medical Center, their foundation. She's the executive director. Anything Fairfield Medical, FMC health.org, that's the website. I did remember that. Tracy told me that, so I did remember that. Thank her for coming on. Change gears a little bit, and another good cause we're going to talk about now. This is a program that I just heard our next guest do a program a couple of weeks ago on it, and it was so interesting. I thought, well, we need to have this on the show. We want to hear about it. It's fun to invite back our good friend Ivan Smith. Ivan, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Glad to be with you.
Good to have you here. Ivan's been on for several different things. He's a very well-rounded person in the community, very involved in many different things and a lot of great causes. And the one we're going to talk about now is called Water Mission, and I think perhaps the name tells you what it might be about. But Ivan Smith is the volunteer advocate locally for Water Mission. And again, I had the pleasure of hearing you do a program on it. It was super interesting, the things you talked about. And I imagine you feel that way too. It's such a worthwhile organization.
It is extremely worthwhile, and people in the developed nations like ours really don't know about the water situation in the world.
I learned a lot there with that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is making water accessible around the world like we take for granted. We flip on a faucet and it's there.
Yes.
That's not the case everywhere.
That is definitely not the case everywhere. As a matter of fact, of the 8 billion people in the world, fully half of them have serious problems with unsafe water. It's a killer.
Yeah.
It is literally a killer.
Yeah.
And I think, if I may, we have to understand that before we can really understand what an organization like Water Mission does.
Yeah, I think the point you make is that it's just not an inconvenience to not have the water. There's far more underlying things like life and death situations that Water Mission tries to alleviate.
Yes, they are absolutely life and death situations. And I've got statistics. Sometimes I don't remember the exact statistics, but there are about there's a death from unsafe water in the world every 37 seconds.
Oh.
There's a death every 37 seconds.
I had no idea.
From dysentery, and it's much worse than that because the people in the developing countries are typically moms and girls are the ones that go out to fetch the water every morning.
Yeah.
And they'll go for 6 hours in the morning out and back just to get this water, which is not safe.
Yeah.
And then they come back and people drink it, and then we have all these deaths.
Yeah.
Worse than all of that, or in addition to all of that, what I think, while these young girls are going with their moms, and it's always the women, it's always the moms and their daughters, what they're not doing is they're not going to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of results in kind of a downward economic spiral. So here is a young girl that gets to be 13 or 14 and gets to be reproductive age, and often that's what happens. They are not well educated. They are at best unable to make a decent living, and it goes on and on
continues
from one generation to the next.
Yeah. You brought along a short video here of kind of a overview of what you do. Just kind of set that up for us.
Well, Water Mission was an engineering company run by a man by the name of Dr. George Green and his wife Molly. They had a friend, the bishop, the Anglican bishop in Honduras, and when the earthquake occurred in Honduras, they wrote to the bishop, sent an email to the bishop and said, "How can we help you?" Bishop Leo Frade immediately sent it back, said, "We need 6 safe drinking water systems. We don't have water to drink right now." Mm-hmm. Well, George, being a smart engineer, sat down at his desk with a couple of books and a pad, and he designed these systems in very short order. They made the 6 systems and shipped them on down to Honduras. And then George and his wife Molly, who was partners with him in the engineering company, went on down for the installation. And that's when they discovered the worldwide water crisis. That's when their eyes were open.
This is the kind of the opening steps then that we're going to see. So this is the video of Water Mission, Molly Green. Let's see that now.
In 1998, when Hurricane Mitch hit, we felt like we needed to respond. And so George, my husband, sent an email to the Bishop of Honduras, and the next day there was an email that said, "We need 6 drinking water systems." George just said, "Look, water treatment's not rocket science, we'll design our own." And he got a yellow pad, sat at his table, got out a couple of textbooks. Within a couple of hours, he'd sketched out a design, put together a prototype. It was tested, it worked. In 2 days, we were ready to send 6 drinking water systems to Honduras. So we cleaned up the water, the system, the water was flowing. It was amazingly clean, crystal clear. and no one in the community would come to drink the water. And George and I looked at each other and said, oh man, we have to drink the water. All I can say is it had better work. We drink the water, and as soon as we drink the water, the community starts coming forward to gather water. The pastor in the community said, these people are a gift from the Lord. We had no clue there was even a global water crisis. And God put it on our hearts that this is where He wants us to spend the rest of our lives.
Wow, great video. Molly, her husband, this is, they're like little newborn kittens that their eyes hadn't been opened, and they make the trip down there and bingo, they see a true problem.
Oh yeah, that's right. They saw this awful water that people drank. And then they started to understand. As you know, Molly said, we had no idea there was a worldwide water crisis.
I think most of us don't.
I don't think we do. When we drink water, we do not say, gee, I hope this water's safe.
Yeah.
We assume that the water's safe, and it virtually always is in the developed world.
I guess I think of any of that as I think of, well, it's probably just an inconvenience because they have to go a half hour maybe to do it. And that's too bad for them, but it's way worse than that. And I think we saw that in the video.
Yes, and we saw it in the statistics of the deaths that occur.
So this really kind of began in Honduras.
It did.
And then it
Absolutely.
it's obviously it's globally, and that's where the reach is now for Water Mission.
Yep, they sold their company and founded Water Mission, and that's the way it's been ever since.
And I know God has played a big part in this with that family.
A major part in it. They're a very Christian family, a religious family, and that Christian belief plays a great role in what they do in the countries around the world in which they're operating. They make sure that God plays a key role in a community where they're in the process of installing a system.
Well, let's put up, have Shane put this up right now. He'll put it up, and this is where you can get more information, and we'll talk about how you can help and what you can do. It's watermission.org/next steps. And that's all one word, next steps. Shane will put it up there you'll be able to see it. We'll have it up toward the end of the program too. But so the people we're talking to now, what would you like to have them get out of this, and what would you like to have them do to help?
Well, we're looking for two things. First of all, as you mentioned, I am a volunteer advocate.
Right.
And we need people to do two things. We need them, first of all, to pray, because prayer is the foundation of what Water Mission does. And by the way, I need to mention that there are many other organizations that do things similar to what Water Mission does. But as you'll see, Water Mission doesn't see themselves as competing with these organizations. They see themselves as cooperating with this organization.
There's enough they all can coexist.
They all can coexist, and the goal is to get rid of safe water throughout the world.
Yeah.
And they work together on doing that. So we want people to pray for them. And secondly, we want them to seriously consider becoming thirst quenchers. Thirst quenchers. A thirst quencher is a person that contributes on a regular basis financially to the work that Water Mission does. So we've got the foundation of praying to solve this situation, and then what we need is the money and the people to do it. Paul, one thing we need to make clear, there's nothing mysterious about this. We know how to purify water. We know how to make water safe. We don't have enough money to do it in all the places around the world. We don't have enough people that are involved in supporting it in all the places around the world. It is not an impossible thing. It's being done in some places. It can be done everywhere it needs to be done.
And as you indicated, it's more than just digging a hole and making a well. That's the least of the problems. That's why they're in the mess they're in now. In some cases, is because there's just been a hole dug and they're taking the water up and it's not good. So this is the whole filtration system from finding the water to making it safe to drink. It's the whole deal.
Yes, and it's a scientific process, and it's absolutely understood. We know how to do it. We are doing it in some places, but not enough places yet.
So something we want to remember, you brought that up, somewhere in the world, a death occurs due to unsafe water every 37 seconds. 37 seconds, and so much of that is children, too.
Oh, so much of it is children.
And so the economic impact is unbelievable. You've got children, then you've got this other whole spiral where mostly this is done by women, and out of that causes tons of problems in the economy, not educated, reproductive. I'm sure there are so many health missions and so many health issues that we see.
The moms and the daughters walk long distances, usually in the dark of night in wintertime.
Didn't you say it's hours?
Oh, 6 hours, 6.5 hours out and back each day.
In unsafe conditions.
In unsafe conditions.
Sure.
And not going to school.
Obviously that's taken away from that. It's a great cause.
Wonderful cause.
Again, I enjoyed the program you did. I hope we've been able to get this across right now. And we'll put it up again here. This is Ivan Smith, who is a volunteer advocate for Water Missions. It's a program to find, start water, and make it safe to drink, not only in Honduras, which is the video we saw, but around the world. Would you say 70 countries?
Water Mission is involved in some 70 countries.
70 countries. So it's a worldwide issue, and it's just kind of getting, I guess, the awareness out there, right?
Oh, it's getting the awareness out there to the people, and how they do it in a country is they involve the people directly. It's their system. They set up a safe water committee in a location.
And they take it over.
Imagine having to learn to wash your hands.
Yeah.
We learned that when we were right after we learned to walk.
Yeah. So again, it's Water Mission. Shane will put it up here. It's watermission.org/next steps, and you can see it there. That's what it is. If you want to get more information, it's a very good website that gives you lots of information on how you can help, starting with the prayer, as I've indicated, and then become a thirst quencher, which is the important part of helping fund this thing along the way. Final thoughts as we head out on this?
Well, I just want to reiterate that I am an advocate. I see the need for this as being tremendous. And in my old age, I'm retired, but I'm not like a lot of retired people. I do this on a pretty full-time basis because I really believe in it. It's
a good cause. Water Missions, Ivan Smith, volunteer advocate. Information is on there, and give you all the information you need to get involved. Ivan, thanks for bringing this up, raising the awareness.
Pleasure. Glad to do it. Happy to do it.
Appreciate your coming on. Thanks for joining us on Spectrum and on YouTube with Fairfield Today.
Interface Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.